Everyone thought Teyana Taylor would fall apart after her marriage collapsed. That's how these stories usually go. Public love story, messy split, emotional interviews, maybe a few tears on camera to keep the audience satisfied. But that never happened. Instead of breaking down, she went quiet, and that silence did more damage to the narrative than any dramatic confession ever could. From the outside, her marriage to Iman Shumpert once looked solid. Two stars balancing fame and family, posting playful moments, celebrating wins together, building an image that felt grounded in a world that feeds on chaos. They weren't overly flashy. They didn't overshare. It looked controlled, intentional. And maybe that's why the cracks hit harder when they finally surfaced. The divorce headlines didn't just appear out of nowhere. Long before the public announcement, there were subtle shifts, fewer joint appearances, energy that felt different in photos, the kind of tension that doesn't scream but lingers. By the time the word divorce started trending, insiders were already whispering about asset splits, custody details, and financial negotiations that weren't as smooth as fans assumed. But while the internet dissected every rumor, she didn't respond. No emotional sit-down, no defensive threads, no curated vulnerability. Just stillness. In celebrity culture, that's rare. When a high-profile relationship ends, there's usually a performance attached to it. Some kind of narrative control. Instead, she gave nothing. And when a woman refuses to narrate her pain, the internet writes the script for her. Speculation filled the gap fast. People assumed she was devastated. Others claimed she was calculating, but she never corrected a single version. Then came Aaron Pierre, a softer chapter. Their appearances felt calm, almost understated. The red carpet moments weren't loud or attention-seeking, just quiet smiles, subtle glances, chemistry that didn't need captions. Fans leaned into it immediately. They called it healing. They called it earned peace. They said she finally found someone who balanced her chaos. For a while it worked. The narrative shifted from heartbreak to redemption. But healing that looks perfect online rarely holds steady behind the scenes. The relationship faded as quietly as it started. No explosive fallout. No messy posts. Just distance. And once again, she vanished. This time the silence felt heavier. Her captions grew shorter, more poetic. Photos carried a certain weight in her eyes that fans immediately began decoding. Every shadow, every lyric, every background detail became evidence in some imagined investigation. Engagement spiked, not because she was speaking, but because she wasn't. Mystery fuels curiosity, and curiosity fuels clicks. Months passed, and the noise dulled. The crowd moved on to the next scandal, the next public breakdown, until she returned with a single sentence that reignited everything. This time I'm protecting my peace. No name attached, no reveal, no face. Just that line. It hit differently. When someone says they're protecting their peace, it implies there was chaos before. When they say they're protecting it, it means something valuable is at stake. Suddenly, it wasn't just about romance. It was about control. The internet went into detective mode overnight. Fans zoomed into reflections and photos, analyzed vacation backdrops, tracked private jet flight patterns, counted luxury accessories, tried matching timelines with wealthy public figures. Designer bags became clues. Hotel balconies became evidence. It felt less like celebrity gossip and more like an online crime board stitched together with speculation. Then the tone shifted. The comments turned sharp. Accusations surfaced. She only dates powerful men. She leveled up. She's chasing status. The narrative flipped from resilience to opportunism within days. And once again, she didn't defend herself. Silence online is rarely interpreted as grace. It's treated like guilt. But insiders began hinting at something else. They claimed the mystery man wasn't from entertainment. Not an actor, not a musician. Someone with influence in spaces that don't rely on cameras to maintain power. The kind of name that doesn't trend because it doesn't need to. The whispers grew darker. Some suggested that if his identity ever surfaced, it wouldn't just spark gossip. It would spark conversations certain people would rather avoid. Industry publicists reportedly stopped entertaining certain questions. Gossip accounts began softening their language, suddenly leaning on words like allegedly and unconfirmed more than usual. That kind of caution doesn't appear randomly, and when bloggers start lowering their volume, it usually means someone higher up prefers quiet. Through all of it, she remained composed. No forced positivity, no defensive interviews, no emotional bait for headlines. The internet expected a meltdown, a scandal, some dramatic unraveling that could justify the noise. Instead, she moved like someone who understood something the crowd didn't. In a culture that profits from watching women fall apart, composure feels like rebellion. The louder the accusations became, the calmer she appeared. That kind of stillness unsettles people, because if she's not reacting, then maybe she's not losing. The backlash said more about the audience than it did about her. The same crowd that once praised her strength suddenly demanded access. They wanted details, explanations, confessions. They felt entitled to the next chapter because they'd consumed the previous ones. But she refused to perform her healing for them. Her quiet wasn't emptiness, it was a boundary. And boundaries make people uncomfortable. The narrative froze. No leak surfaced. No blurry photos confirmed anything. No dramatic reveal satisfied the detectives. Without chaos to feed on, the noise slowly started starving. Speculation doesn't survive long without oxygen, yet something about this situation feels unfinished. Not because there's a scandal waiting to explode, but because the rules changed. She didn't lose control of her story after the divorce. She quietly took it back, and not in a way the audience recognizes as power. Control doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like refusing to clap back. Sometimes it looks like letting people misinterpret you while you secure something bigger behind the scenes. If the identity of this mystery man ever becomes public, it might shock people. Not because of who he is, but because of what it reveals about the industry's invisible lines. Or maybe it won't be shocking at all. Maybe the real shift already happened the moment she decided the crowd wasn't entitled to her narrative anymore. There's a reason the phrase, "protecting my peace," triggered so much chaos. It wasn't romantic, it was strategic. It told the world she understood the cost of exposure, that she'd experienced what happens when vulnerability turns into content, and that she wasn't willing to pay that price again. The internet doesn't handle that well. It thrives on confession. It survives on access. When access is denied, curiosity turns cruel. Support turns into surveillance. Concern turns into conspiracy. And the woman at the center becomes either a villain or a mystery to solve. But maybe the story isn't about who she's dating. Maybe it's about how she stopped dating the audience. Her marriage was dissected like entertainment. Her rebound was romanticized. Her heartbreak became engagement metrics. And when she decided to withhold the next chapter, the same crowd that once cheered felt betrayed. That's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to admit. The outrage isn't about love. It's about entitlement. Right now, the narrative is paused, quiet, heavy, and waiting. Not for a dramatic confession, but for a moment when everything makes sense in hindsight. When people realize the silence wasn't weakness, it was positioning. She didn't collapse, she recalibrated, and maybe the most powerful move she made wasn't choosing a new partner. It was choosing not to let the world watch her choose. In an industry addicted to exposure, withholding is power. In a culture obsessed with breakdowns, composure is defiance. And in a digital courtroom packed with strangers demanding answers, the most unsettling response is no response at all. The crowd is still waiting for a reveal. A face, a confirmation, something they can screenshot and dissect. But maybe the real reveal already happened. Not every story belongs to the audience. And not every silence is empty. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones holding all the control.